So I received a question from listener Connor Seitz-Bowen, and I thought it was important to actually call out Connor in this particular recording to give some background to how long I've known Connor, because Connor has actually met my daughters. And for a regular listener to my podcasts, that's pretty impressive. But Connor is no regular listener to my podcasts. He started listening to Stone Ape, a podcast that I recorded with Heron Stone about a decade ago. And he's been a pretty ever-present listener and communicator, and he's actually appeared on prior podcasts as well. He was on Attic Aficionados for what might be called an entire season. So Connor has met my daughters, and Connor, ironically, at the time that he met my daughters, looked very much like one of my daughters, and one of my daughters looked particularly like him, which was really very cute at the time. And Connor asks what parenthood has taught me. And I think parenthood is really the long game. Parenthood is years of changing diapers, it's years of just being present, it's years of conveying certain important things. The current two things that I'm conveying with some degree of importance is that books should not be eaten, and also a love of cats. And these are two things which are pretty central to me. I don't think I've really narrated either on any podcast. I don't think I need to narrate either on any podcast, but I think books, in terms of just being a dying enterprise, I really am very curious what the future of books will hold, given the current status of books and how they're treated in a contemporary society. But I want my daughters to have a love of books. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we have cats in the house. We've always had cats, and cats are curious creatures because they do interact. Our three remaining cats interact with the daughters. One is very skittish and pretty well avoids them. Two of them are willing to humour the daughters, which means that the daughters' interaction with the cats needs to be very much around patting and being gentle around the cats, not riding them or doing anything else. So these are two things that I'm actively parenting. Most of the time, when I'm around my daughters, I'm observing them and, doing minor corrections associated with them potentially injuring themselves in various ways. But in general, I'm a pretty passive force in their lives, just being present, as I've been for the past few days because I've been on holiday from work, or staycation, let's say, from work. So parenthood for me is considerably more complicated than I'd originally thought. And my wife has said to me at our most trying times with the girls, maybe it was a mistake and I don't even want to say that stuff out loud because I don't think there's any aspect of my daughters that were a mistake. They are amazingly well-developed and well-developing women in their own right. And to see this happen in real time has made me question. I mean, I obviously come to this from a background of simulated biology, understanding a certain degree of genetics and, when things are supposed to occur. The time frame associated with the daughters observing language and now toilet training and these kind of things are things that I never could have actually fathomed until I actually had them. So really, a lot of the stuff that I knew academically has either gone by the wayside or just diminished in importance compared to actually what the day-to-day life is with little girls. So in answer to Connor's question, the complexity and the interest and just the long game. I mean, the idea that this is really a lifetime worth of interaction in a much smaller period of time where you're trying to instill certain values and certain things that are important. But, basic things like eating food and, toilet training and these kind of things come as well. So the complexity of being a parent I'd never really fully imagined until I actually was immersed in being a parent. So as I record these recordings, I'm recording currently because we have a nanny who comes for a couple of days a week or a few days a week. So I'm able to actually record this recording currently. If the nanny wasn't there, I would be downstairs playing with my daughters currently. So the impact that it's had on what was a very active external life, which was a very active time frame associated with recording podcasts and doing simulation work and doing all the other things, I've had to completely move that stuff to one side, which I'm not objectionable about. It's just very curious that I find myself frequently playing with the girls and just thinking, well, this is a time previously where I would have been reading or recording podcasts or writing software or doing all the other things. And now my sole devotion is with regards to my children. So it is a very complicated thing when it actually unfolds in front of you and you realize, no, the most important thing I have to do currently is be a parent and be present and be active and be there. And sometimes in particular with regards to tiredness, because my wife and I are both, in our 40s, in our mid to late 40s. So we're at a time where we will physically feel tired in some circumstances around the girls, and our ability just to, not necessarily be as physically present as a younger parent would have been is something that I'm very mindful of. So there are all these complexities which don't really hit you until you're actually in the position of being there. But certainly very much in the period of the long game, the idea that this thing, we are still trying to find preschools for our daughters. Or a preschool for our daughters, more importantly. So, the benefit of location and all the other issues. I mean, Las Vegas for me has had a somewhat nightmare scenario historically, and returning to that through the current economic times. And, all that stuff is independent of these two little girls that are just enjoying life in front of you. So it's all very curious to be back in Vegas at this time with these girls, experiencing this stuff. But I think, Connor, I've given you a brief outline of my own thinking. And Connor Seitzbone, final point about Connor Seitzbone, I changed I changed Simulated Ape software. Look, January 2nd and my mind is still failing me. I changed the Simulated Ape software so there could be a Simulated Ape called Connor Seitzbone. So it was a relatively minor change, but definitely an addition that was necessary so Connor could be a Simulated Ape. It was important. Tom Barbalet in Las Vegas, Nevada, signing out.